Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Black Clover Episode 9, and this was an interestingly entertaining episode, because although there were definitely one or two bumps in the road, it still had a lot of interesting moments. To start off with, so we do get a bit of filler in this episode, the main one being the backstory of Magna before we join the Black Bulls. And honestly, this is one of the times where the filler was once again very decently entertaining, because from the past couple of filler bits we've gotten in this anime, I get the feeling Black Clover will be a case where we hit good points and bad points with the filler from what I'm seeing so far, because it seems that right now Piero is kind of sticking to more in-canon filler than filler that detracts from the story, like Bleach. At least so far, anyway. We could eventually get entire filler arcs soon, but for me personally, I was entertained because I legitimately enjoy Magna as a character. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean that the filler is gonna be perfect, because as we've seen, that there are definitely gonna be times where the filler is gonna be hit and miss. Like especially with the last episode that was just focusing on that card game. That was definitely a miss in terms of the filler. But there are definitely times where the Studio Pierrot does kind of seem to have a decent understanding definitely how they're pretty much of how they're going to use their filler. But yeah, I guess we're just going to have to see in the coming episodes in the episodes to come, pretty much. But yeah, I get the feeling that from this point on we are going to get episodes where the filler is definitely hit and miss. I guess it's kind of saying a lot like Naruto, so I guess just take that for what you will. Now, having said that, there was one miss with the filler in this episode, which is that we get an Asta flashback, and I think we could have done without that, because the Asta flashback, it was kind of pointless because it already told us stuff we already kind of knew about Asta, so we didn't really need a flashback like that unless it was to reveal something new, but it really didn't, honestly. So that is definitely one of the big things, I guess, about the episode. And well, honestly, like, one thing I can say about this episode is, honestly, from this one episode, and I guess a little bit from definitely the last couple of minutes in the last episode, I can safely say I love this new villain, because in all the anime I've ever watched, I have a real fascination for particularly a type of villain that is cold, calculating, has a bit of an air of mystery to their motives, but has a bit of an air of mystery to his motives, and also has a very cruel sense of sympathy where you don't necessarily agree with what he's doing and basically trying to kill. You don't necessarily agree with what he's doing, but you can kind of understand why. At least from the whole fight scene in this episode of him trying to kill the villagers while Asta, Magna, and Noelle were fighting him and his men off. Like, again, you definitely know that what he's doing in basically trying to kill these villagers is wrong, but you really, in a way, it's kind of like, in a way, it's almost kind of like putting it's almost kind of like it's like putting a sick animal down, like a very sick animal, a very sick pet down or something. Like, I know it's fucked up to compare, but like with these villagers, they've basically been forgotten by society. So in a way, again, you don't necessarily agree, but you can see where he's coming from almost. So yeah, I just love villains like that. They're probably the coolest. They're the coolest kind of villains in order for me to get attached to. And well, and especially and also I just want to quickly mention the art and animation in this episode. Like, it wasn't perfect, but definitely when it came to the use of magic in this episode, the art and animation was pretty much on. It was definitely on point. Like, I can't say that the art and animation and the characters themselves were good. Were perfect. Like, they were definitely decent enough, but the art and animation on the magic itself, that was amazing. Like just seeing the ice magic, just seeing Asta use his sword, just everything about the magic and the art and animation and the magic in this episode was just up on point. Like I especially love how, especially one thing I do love about the art and animation on the magic on the ice magic specifically, honestly, is basically how clear and it's basically how clear and is basically how clear and almost translucent the ice was in this episode. Because if you've ever seen ice that isn't on the ground, like if you've ever seen an icicle, for instance, you'll definitely know how you definitely know how definitely how clear and how clear and see through it is. That's probably a good analogy as an icicle, but yeah, it is it is definitely it was definitely interesting to note that the art and animation on the magic itself was very was definitely on point for sure in this episode. And so other than that, like we see that Noelle gets development by the end of the episode, with her finally gaining a new spell and, from what I can assume, a better mastery and control of her own magic. And the thing about Noelle's development in this episode is that it did feel somewhat sporadic in a certain, but it did feel sporadic, of course, but in a certain way, it does make sense as well, because from the previous episodes, they did build up that Noelle did feel inferior and insecure compared to her family, and that mental distraction of her trying to prove them wrong is what was keeping her from controlling her magic. So this was her accepting who she is and not who she's desperately trying to be. Actually, it's funny. Actually, the more I talk about it, the more I realize how interestingly different an approach was taken in terms of Noelle's development. Because in the case of in most cases of the shonen cliches and whatnot, they would have gone down the route of the character trying to fight against what people say rather than accept who they are. I guess who they are. I guess they decided to focus and basically from what from what I see so far, anyways, that in terms of Noelle's film, they decided to basically strip. They basically decided to strip they basically decided to strip all of that particular shonen, all of that particular shonen cliche, and they decided to focus it more on Asta and give all that focus on that particular shonen cliche to Asta and Yuno, whereas which of course gives more room for basically it would be a character like Noelle to in fact develop in this sort of a way. Again, it's one of those things where you kind of have to look at it from a perspective where yeah, you could argue that it is definitely sporadic, but we definitely do get little hints, and we do get little hints of basically who of as a character who Noelle is and who she was trying too hard to be. But here they kind of put it in reverse and say, look, and Noelle says, "Fuck it, I'm tired of being who I'm trying to be. I'm just gonna be Noelle." And even though even though she technically did say she was royalty, it's still kind of who she is. So it's her accepting who she is. Even though she is a script, she is still technically she does accept her role as royalty, whether that means good or bad. So yeah, in that way, I do kind of like it a lot, to be honest with you. And I guess to top this episode off, we got a bit of world building showing that there are basically three regions to the Clover Kingdom: the noble region, the noble realm where the royals live, the common realm where the commoners live. That one was pretty obvious, and the Forsaken realm, which is where the beasts live. Which I'm pretty sure, judging from the way the Saucy Kingdom was portrayed, is an area that has basically been long forgotten by both, but by pretty much both of the other realms. Like in a way, this setup of basically this setup reminds me a lot of the Hunger Games, almost except without the death game. But it still does show the very large social gap of this world. Like the royals are at the top, and the commoners are beneath them. But even more so below that are people who have been long forgotten by both, but basically both realms of society. Like even the commoners, I think, have even forgot about those in the Forsaken realm. So it just shows that yeah, there are kind of there are those who've just been forgotten by society. In a way, the Forsaken Realm, in a way, it reminds Forsaken Realm. In a way, it reminds me pretty much almost a lot of this, a lot of the. I guess you could say that they're basically the homeless and the vagabonds of this world. But yeah, it is interesting for sure. It is interesting to see all this like development into the. It is interesting to see this little development into the world for sure. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Death Night of Anime. Signing off. Later, guys.